So happy last week in a sense of real productive work. If we can make it through this week and you guys are fully engaged, you get everything done, next week is going to be a breeze. It's really just check in. What are you missing? What do you need to do? Did you turn in your textbooks? And then we're done. So this is the last big push this week. If you can have a productive week, then you'll be able to relax. So here's what we're going to do, and I want to explain this before you jump into it. We'll have you log into Schoology, and you're going to complete Activity 1 in this week's folder. I'll show you right where that's at. And then we're going to follow all the steps. But I think it's helpful if I explain it first, and then have you go through each step. And then we are going to meet back here at Zoom at about 8:40 just to see how everything's going. So this is kind of small. What I'm going to do is in the chat right now, I'll send you this link. Those of you who are in class right now, you can get the same thing by going to our Schoology page. So if you are on our Schoology page and you scroll down to week 11, it's either right here on the week agenda, you could click on that link, or it's also in the Monday folder. But you can click on this activity, and it'll bring you to the page we're going to work with right now. And what the goal here is for you to just read those directions and follow the steps. But it's been my experience in the past that kids kind of just skip to the bullet parts and they don't read everything. So I think one of the biggest things here, let me see if I can make this bigger, is I'm just going to read through the first part of this activity. So we will be creating what's called a picture graph, and I'll show you multiple examples of that here today. There will be times when you want only a portion of a graph or a function, and what you'll need to do is you need to use an interval on those graphs as part of the function that you want to see. This is called a restriction. To get a better understanding of how Desmos works with the restrictions, we place on a function, we're going to walk through a quick little tour of Desmos. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to desmos.com, and you're going to start graphing, but here's the key part. You want to sign in using your school Gmail account. If you don't do that, it's not going to save properly, and that's one of the big things that you'll want to make sure you do often is saving throughout this whole process this week. So if you could also pull up, and maybe just do that now, go to www.desmos.com. And then there's going to be a little sign-in feature. And it should be right in this corner. I'm already signed in. But make sure you sign in by using your Gmail account. There should be an option to sign in with Gmail. Click on that. And we just want to make sure that you basically create an account with your school email address. Okay? So once you've created that account, you can actually jump right into the Start Graphing side. I just lost my... So you'll sign in, and once you're signed in, it should look like something like this. Now, here's what you're going to do to start. Is in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to select the little question mark. That's the help feature. And then you'll get a drop-down menu that looks like this. You're going to then choose Getting Started. And there's a little video for you to watch there. And that's crucial because it's going to kind of really teach you some small things. And then we're going to go to a tour of restrictions. So you'll do step 3, step 4. And then you're going to follow the prompts to complete the restrictions tour. That basically tells us how to graph just a part of a line. And then when you are done with that, you're going to click this little 3-bar piece in the upper left-hand corner, and you're going to choose new blank graph to start. All right, so these you'll be able to follow these through, but then here's the important part. You're going to do an activity where we give you basically, I think it was 8 lines, 7 or 8 lines that you have to type this in exactly. Now usually what happens is kids have problems finding these brackets to start. That's on your keyboard, it's a shift, it's right next to the letter P. So shift brackets, and that will give you these nice little brackets here. Otherwise, they kind of show you how to use that drop-down menu. But your goal is to type it in exactly the way you see it, and when you're all done, you're going to get a graph that has a very iconic image to it that you probably will start to recognize as you type it in. So then you're going to give it a title. What we should have probably put here was just put your name. So your title might be like Activity 1, Mr. Strub. Put your name on it. And then you have to save it. And the key is click Save Often. All right, so when you're doing it, you click Save Often, and then you're going to share your graph with your teacher, and you're going to click on this little download arrow, which copies the link, and then you will go to our assignment in Schoology and paste that activity, and then you're done. So we're hopefully I put an ambitious goal of let's meet back at 8:40 this morning. It might be a little later, it might be 8:45. But if we can get through this in the morning, we'll be in a pretty good spot to kind of touch base and come back. The one slide I didn't show you, I should have showed you this. This was my intention. This is our goal eventually, is we're going to create what's called a picture graph. So you're going to use math equations to design an image. Some of these are very detailed, and we spent more time on this in years past. So the expectations are going to be a little bit different this year because of the amount of time we have to spend. So we've scaled it down, which means your image is going to be a little more scaled down, which is completely fine. You're still going to get the gist of this and hopefully have some creative fun. But if you would, make sure, let's log into Schoology. You guys can follow Activity 1, log into Desmos. I will be available on chat as well as in person here, and your goal is to just kind of get as far as you can in the next 20 to 25 minutes on that Activity 1 that was shared with you. So for sure we're going to meet back at 8:40 to 8:45, and I'll just let you know when we're ready to go. Otherwise, good luck. I'll show you where we're at. So it's step 3. Once you choose the getting started, I always forget that they give you options. So let me show you where we're at here. So once you go into Desmos, you signed in and you hit started graphing, there's a little help button right here. It's a question mark. If you don't see it, make sure you maximize your screen. But you're going to click the help button, and then you're going to go down to resources and click the getting started. And this is the one step that I forgot to tell you about. So what do we want to learn today? We have to choose the graphing calculator. That's the option we want to choose. Just watch that short video on how to do the graphing calculator. When you click on that, you got this little video here that you can watch. All right, and once you watch that, then you can go back and do the restrictions tour. So, getting started, and then the graphing calculator. So once you started this activity, you started your own graph. You should just title this Activity 1 and put your name. Oh. Spelling, whatever. And then hit save. And then the key is anytime you make a change, you're going to have this little green button. I think it's green. You'll want to hit save often. Right? Now, here's one of the other things. Like, let's say that I type something in here and then I accidentally hit delete. Shoot. I just did all that work. If you hit the back arrow, you will use this often in your project. But this little undo brings it right back. So that's key. But let me show you a couple things. Notice how I don't have a graph appear right now. And that's for two reasons. One, I turned it off. You can turn those on and off if you need to, but they should always be on. And then I click on this one and nothing showed up. And we had a couple of people, it looked like everything was written down perfect, and then we realized there was one tiny thing here, and I believe it was this one, that the -3 should be outside of the square root. So if you're having some issues in the first couple, make sure, see where the square root sign comes? Make sure that it's either underneath or on the outside of it, depending on what it's asking. So here you can see I put the -3 outside of the square root, and that's what made it appear. So I know that this first part is kind of frustrating because you have to type in things perfectly. Now, I won't go further in case you don't know what the image is, but that's always kind of fun. But let me show you how I could do some things with changing this really quickly. So notice the color. If you want to, and this might be for your project, you don't have to do it for this activity, but if you click the edit list, look at what's possible really quick. You can change colors. So I could change everything to purple if I wanted. And just click on the next one. You could even change the lines to dotted if you want, or more circular. I don't know if that's part of the image you want to make, but those are things that you could do. And then there's some font. You can change the thickness of this, and I didn't really see what it was like, so if I type in 2, that kind of makes it smaller. If I type in 22, makes it really big. You obviously want to make that kind of fit whatever you need for your picture. All right. So anyways, that's the edit button. Important thing, undo, edit, and then hit save often. What I had, and I had this happen in years past, I had a kid who worked the entire hour and then his computer died. Completely died. He wasn't paying attention and he hadn't hit save once. He lost everything. And it's really frustrating to see you guys work that hard and just not hit save. So make that a routine. Hit save often. Okay, so that's the first part, activity. And this was just to kind of get you guys used to what Desmos could. Hopefully you learned a little bit from the restrictions. I am going to make a video tonight that has a little more customized options for us. In case you have questions, you can always go back and look at that video later on. So I'll post that when I create it. But, oops, surprise. This is what your image should look like. If it's not the bat symbol, then you might want to check, or what usually happens is everybody has, like, things could be perfect, and then, like, the ears are wonky, or something ends up off. That just means you missed one line, wasn't perfect. So anyways, what do we do next? Well, what you should do then is if you have this image, you can go ahead and hit this button right here, which is share graph, and then just copy that link. When you copy your completed graph, then you're going to go to Schoology, and you're going to go to the assignment for today under the Monday folder, and you're just going to share that piece. So if I click on this week, go to Monday, or you can do it in your little menu there, but then you have this option here. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to just post a comment. So make a comment and then just copy your link, and you can see that's what a lot of people have done already. So just go down to the comment, post your link, and then you're done. And it'll automatically have your name there. But that's how you'll share this graph with me. Okay? Now, what about the project itself? What are we expecting you guys to do? Well, here's the thing. I am going to, as soon as we're done with class, I'm going to post these notes so you can go back and read it, and this might be a slide you want to look at. Okay, so hopefully everybody is focused right now on what's on my slide. We had some parent functions that we've learned in the past. We had a constant line, linear line, and absolute value. All of those are from Algebra 1. You can use those. What I did was I related them back to A, H, and K. Remember how we can use sliders to get the line exactly where you want to go? I'll show you that again here just kind of briefly. But these are the parent functions that you can use to help you position your graph however you need. And once you learn more about restrictions, you can move the graph and then restrict it and get that portion of the graph that you need. So I'll kind of share that with you. I will just make a small note for the square root. My software, I didn't have the best symbol, so remember taking the 1/2 power is the same as that square root sign. And then same thing down here, the 1/3 power is the same as the cube root. But these are the functions that we studied this unit. Quadratic, cubic, square root, cube root, and they call it reciprocal. We actually called it rational functions. Okay, so what is the project? What are you going to be asked to do for your project? Notice it's 40 points. It's a little bit more than the last 2 tests we took, and we did that because we're going to spend a full week on this, and it's completely your project. Plus, this should be an opportunity where everybody gets really close to 100% if you do the work, and that's a good boost right at the end of the year. So we'll read through this, but you have actually access to this in Schoology. Let me pull this back up. So if you go back to Schoology here, and under the Week 11 folder, I just put it right at the very bottom. So what you're going to do then is you'll click on your Desmos project, and then this is what it looks for me. It looks a little different for you. But then you are going to have access to this document, so if you open it, it will create your own Google slide for you, or Google Doc. You might want to retitle your name. Just retitle it with your name and project. But then you have the rubric right here with the full description. Okay, so we're going to just read through this quick, just so everybody knows what's at stake. But your job is to create your own picture graph using Desmos graphing software. Below is the rubric that will be used to graph your project, or grade your project. You will need to share a link for your final project with your teacher on Schoology once it's complete. We actually have a spot on here that'll share it. And this is not due until Tuesday, June 1st. But what I've noticed is, in years past, some kids have just put it off until the night before, and they get stuck. They don't get the questions answered, and I'm not going to be available Monday night at 10 o'clock. Right? So you want to make sure you get your questions answered. I hope you guys can almost be done by the end of this week, if not completely done. So what's expected from you? First, you're going to create your picture graph starting today using the Desmos software and the functions we studied in Algebra 2. Now, you will be expected to use a minimum of one of each of these following functions. So a quadratic, a polynomial, which could be cubic or quartic. So it could be to the 3rd power, 4th power. Maybe it's to the 5th or 6th power, but those are just kind of some basic ones. Rational functions and radical functions, you have to use a square root or a cube root. So you've got to have a minimum of those, one of each. You may also use linear, absolute, or exponential functions from last year. Now, I am going to show you this equation right here. This is how you can get a circle. We haven't learned this. This is actually a pre-calc concept, so you're actually getting a little taste of next year's work. But it's how you get circles. It's y minus k squared plus x minus h squared plus the radius squared. So notice, h and k do the same thing that you think they do for every other function. But I'll just show you that in a second. So, what is the goal? What you're going to do then is, at some point when you get done with your project, you're going to come in here and you're going to type in, I have in line 4 a quadratic equation that looks like this. X squared plus, oops, I didn't mean to hit enter, plus 3x minus 4. Something like that. You're going to tell me where is this located, so it's line 4 of my graph, and you're just going to write the equation. Right? And that way I can go back and look and see that you quickly met the requirements. You're going to do that for each one. And that's worth 20 points. So that's half your project is using the stuff that we know. And notice there's a self-assessment, so you'll come in here and just hopefully say, yep, I met those requirements and I got a 20 out of 20, and then I will grade it using the same rubric as well. And then here's where you're going to insert your link. So you're just going to go copy, paste, put your link there, so when I access it, notice I just cut and paste it. And then you can just say, yep, I inserted my link. And then level of difficulty, you're going to give yourself a score. Do you think you challenged yourself and it was really tough? If so, a 10 out of 10. If you did very minimal work and you know you could have done better, maybe it's a 8 out of 10, 9, whatever. And then creativity, you get to get creative with it. If you think your creativity was right on, then you're scoring yourself at 100%, and then you just hit submit. All right? So that's the project. Pretty basic, but that allows you a lot of creativity. Now, I do want to show you a couple things with sliders really quick and this equation of a circle. So what I'm going to do is take my Desmos graph from before. Where is that? Here we go. And I'm going to use this one here, but watch what I'm going to do, okay? And please make sure you're watching. If I have y minus k squared, so y minus k, notice when I typed in k, that slider popped up. That's going to really be helpful for you. Plus x minus h squared equals, equals r squared. Let's see if that's a little wonky right there, but I think it's okay. Let me delete that one. There we go. So then once I have, notice x and y, those are my points, right? That's the relationship of an equation. But h, k, and r are all sliders. So what if I wanted to take this circle, which by the way, that's how you get circles, and I wanted to pretend that this was like Batman's symbol eyeball, right? I can move it. Let's say I wanted to go right there, and then I can take the radius and make it, the r is the radius, so that's what makes it bigger or smaller. So let's say that I wanted that as an eyeball. Well, what do? Then I position it to wherever I want it. Now, here's the key. If I want to make another circle, I don't want to leave this as y equals, I don't want to leave it with the sliders. What I'm going to do then is copy this. So I'll just copy it. And then I'm going to paste it again down here. But this time I know what I want k to be. I want k to be 1.2. Right? And then I want h to be negative 2.6. Now notice, I could just put in a negative 2.6, or I could have wrote plus, same thing. And then I want my radius to be 0.5. Okay? Now, watch, why is this beneficial? So this green line is the exact circle, but that means I can now move my h and k again, and actually if I want to get a really nice eyeball, I'm just going to move the h to a spot that's symmetric, and then I'll retype it. So that's a little hint that you can use the sliders to get the position you want, and then all you have to do is just retype the equation with those exact values put in, and then you can reuse these values. Now here's one other thing. If I stopped here and I typed in another equation that involved h or k or r, it's going to use these values. So you might have to name it, instead of h, you might have to rename this with a different letter. W, K, or probably not K, but T, and then make a slider using that. So I'll let you play around with it. That's kind of what today is about, is you play around and you get some questions answered and you have some fun creativity-wise. Here's some helpful hints for this project. Save your work often. Sketch out a rough draft by hand. If you're having problems, you could just sketch out one by hand. Now, I go back and forth because sometimes just playing around with the equations helps you design the picture. So this could be time saving or it could be time wasting. Use the tutorial videos to help you troubleshoot. So if there's something you want to do, try that help feature and type in restrictions or type in how do I make shading? How do I shade a graph? because that's something that you could do. Use all the functions that we've learned in class at least once. Save your work often. Don't forget about using restrictions. Explore sliders and inequalities. That's the one thing I'll show you here. And then the equation of the circle we just showed you. And lastly, save your work often. Right? So, what do we have today? Your goal today in class is to finish activity 1 and then submit that to Schoology. This afternoon, you should be working on your project and getting started. And then on Wednesday, it's basically a day, I'm going to show you a little bit more with restrictions and cool things you could do. But it's basically a full workday. Friday is expected to be a full workday for you. And then the project is due on Tuesday. All right? So make sure, those of you at Tartan, return your textbooks whenever you can. If you're coming into Tartan for any reason, bring your textbook, drop it off at the library. All right. There's one last thing I want to show you quick, and you may or may not want to use this. Now, this works great with circles. It doesn't work awesome with the other ones, but watch. Instead of using an equal sign, watch what happens if I change it to a less than or equal. So see the change? It shaded it in. What if I accidentally change the wrong one? It shades everything that is greater than that. So everything outside of the circle, which could be good or could be bad, that's where you get to play. And then you can use restrictions to help the shading as well. So those are some hints you can play around with, is changing equal signs to greater than or equal to get some shading. Okay? And then you can change the color of that as well by hitting this little wheel. And maybe you want a black, I don't know, whatever you want. Right? So, you should start with a blank graph. So when you're ready, you're just going to go up here and start with a new graph. And make sure you title it right away. Just title it Desmos Project with your name. That way I know for sure it's yours. And then, as we said, hit save often as you go. Technically, you do not need to use restrictions. However, restrictions really do help make this look kind of cool. And I want to show you just quick. I don't have any of these flagged perfectly. If I can find my real awesome ones. Like this was one girl's from a year or two ago. She made a little, like, I think she called it a dream catcher. So she played around with that. Let's see if this is a good one. So this girl had a very similar idea, but notice she used animation. There is a way to animate. I'm not going to tell you how, because that's one of the things, we just don't have a lot of time for it. But if you're bored or if you've got time to explore, you can definitely have some fun with this. Let me see if I can find. Shoot, I don't know if I have it. Oh, here we go. This was probably my ultimate. You guys are going to be amazed. This is probably the best one that I've ever had turned in. And I am not expecting you guys to do this. Okay, she got really creative with what she wanted to do. And if you'll notice, the salivating person, the drips are dropping. She found a way to shade it too, but it's a person eating grilled cheese. Completely random, but it was very, very good. Okay. Now, I do want to make this last point. I understand that if you, I don't know if I should be sharing this, but if you typed in Desmos picture graphs and you just searched images, you can find almost anything you want to make. Now look at, somebody did Danny DeVito. Okay, maybe that's Danny DeVito, yeah. Drake is on there, right? Somebody did, no, who's that? Patrick, thank you. But here's the thing. Every year I get 1 or 2 kids that think they can just open it up and copy and paste, and then they turn in an awesome project. Well, I'll tell you what, if it raises suspicion, I Google it and I search, and every year I find kids that take stuff from the internet and prove it as their own, and then we have to deal with academic integrity. I don't want to do that. If the requirements for this project are not that high, that you can create your own much faster and with less risk than just trying to copy and paste it. All right? So please make sure you're doing your work. I'm here for questions. I know that was a lot for this hour, but hopefully you have a good understanding of how to finish activity 1 and at least play around and get started. You might do 3 different projects before you settle in on something that works. Completely fine. All right, so that's all I have here. Let me know if you got any questions, and I can hopefully answer them out in the next couple minutes. Those of you on Zoom, feel free to come back to class at 12:15. Just use this same link for our class. That's our afternoon session, and I will be available via Zoom for any questions, kind of like we were all here. So that's all I have. Stick around if you got any questions. Otherwise, have fun exploring and creating. Adios.